What is going on, guys? It's Acrillix here today, and as you can tell from the title, we're going to be talking about basic deck building 101. There's a lot of different guides I've read on the internet about deck building, and I don't really feel like any of them really suffice to what your deck should be built as. Right now, as you can see, I am a level 80 Archmage Pyromancer. So this applies for all levels. Once you get higher than 30, this is when you're really going to want to start building your decks. Before then, you're just going to kind of throw everything in. I'm going to go over the different levels of when you should be doing stuff. So you can get a better idea of where you should start building your decks to a specific parameters. So this guy is going to show you guys how to do that. So first, I'm just going to kind of quickly go over the decks. So I bring up my backpack here. Whoops. Okay, so I have many decks. I have 2 Braided Silvers, Bundle of Eternal Flame, Deck of the Devouring Flame, and Tanglewood cards. Now, these are all about level 70 and up. There's one that's 45, but I do keep that one. These ones I haven't gotten rid of yet. I haven't sold off yet, but I will. So, here we go. So you're going to want to keep a couple different decks. Now these decks are going to be used specifically for different tasks. So for example, if I bring up my deck list here, my biggest decks are always going to be for the bosses. So if we go back to my thing here, so level 75, 64... Yeah, so my Braided Silver deck is the first one I want to build. This one we're going to name. You're going to name your deck. This one's going to be for boss. What the fuck is... Did I go over it? Oh, whoops. Boss deck. Okay. So this is going to be your boss deck. So what you're going to want to put in here. Now, obviously, you're not going to have the same spells as I do. But first, you're going to want to look at your enemy. Now, this deck is constantly changing to what the boss type is. So if you're fighting a storm boss with a fire minion, you're going to want to slap in some volcanic shields if you have them. If not, don't worry about it. For the most part, everybody should have tower shields. So tower shields should always be the first thing to go in your deck. Put all of them in there. You're going to need them. Next are enchantments. I'm not going to put the shields in here just because this is just for show. For enchantments, you're going to want to put all your enchantments that you have. Now, I have it up to Colossal, so I'm going to put all my Colossals in there. Next is your healing cards. Now, if you have Sprite and Pixie, you're going to put both of those in because you will need them. Your deck, the first 3 rows are basically all going to be healing and shields. And maybe the 4th will also be filled up with shields too. But if you don't want to go past the middle, you want to leave about half your deck for attack, shields, blades, traps. But we'll get to that in a minute. So you're going to want to put this in here. Now, for me, because I have Life Mastery Amulet, I actually don't carry Sprite anymore. I got rid of that, and now I carry him, my little goat friend here. I will occasionally put in Spirit Armor, but I only put in 3 or 2 of my Spirit Armors. But that's only sometimes if the boss needs, if I need it. Next are Blades. Now, Blades are important, but they also can be a problem. What I mean by that is you don't always want to put your entire thing of Blades in there. What I say is about 4 is a good, 4 or 5 is a pretty good number, because you're not going to be hitting more than 4 or 5 times on a boss fight, because typically you build up more than you do just single attacks like you do mobs. So once you put that in there, traps. Now personally, I don't use traps. That's only because for me, being fire, it's more of a problem because most of my hits are either 1 hit or the 3 hits, or 4 sometimes. So traps for me don't really apply. But if you're going to put traps in there, again, 4 is a good number because there's 4, 1 for each enemy, is a pretty good idea. Next, don't put Steel Charm, don't put Smokescreen, don't put Tranquilize, don't put any of those in there. These are not good things to put in there unless the boss that you're fighting requires it. Like some bosses will have a cheat where they'll put blades on, for example, Tower of Hierophant, and then in that case, Steel's Charm would be a good idea, so you can steal those charms away from him when he does get them put on. Next would be Wildfire, any of those auroras that go bubbles, I should say, actually bubbles spells. These are not good ideas unless the enemy you're fighting does not have that school. If the enemy you're fighting, if a minion has that school, don't put it in your deck. It's not worth it. Yes, it improves your spells by 25%, but over time, it will do you more hurt than it will do good. Okay, attack spells. So because I'm higher level, obviously I'm going to put higher level spells in here, but basically if you are level lower level, you're going to want to put both AoEs, which are area effects, which would be like Meteor Strike, Scald, Fire Dragon, Rain of Fire, for example. You're going to want to put those in there because as Fire, your job is basically just keep placing these on there. Does not mean you have to kill. Your job is to basically keep tower shields off, if they're ice especially, and to apply that damage over time so your friends can build up their attacks while you're dealing damage. Now, the biggest problem I run into when fighting boss, the biggest problem I run into while facing bosses is the build-ups. It gets really complicated because you're trying to build up your spells, you're trying to get them as powerful as you can so you can do those one hits. Stop doing that. Don't do that. It's not worth it. Trust me. Put a blade on. If you have it in your deck, if you have it in your hand and you haven't gotten the pips to get your spell, put your blade on. But if you are going to, if it's either blade or hit. It's way more worth it in the long run, especially if you're doing AoE dots, which is Fire Dragon, Rain of Fire, Scald, Fire Elf, any of those. You're going to want to just put those on there because they're going to deal more damage anyways. So for example, for me, what I would put in would be usually about 4 Rain of Fires because those are the ones I'm going to be using the most often. 3 Ifrits because Ifrit gives you a 90% outgoing on the enemy you hit it on. So placing this on, doing this on the enemy boss is a really good idea. And then also putting in, and this doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but Meteor Strike and a lot of elves. Now, this is for fire specifically, but the reason why I tell people to put fire elves in their deck for boss fights is because look at it this way. If you have 2 pips and you look at your hand and you don't have anything good in your hand immediately and you have a fire elf, cast it. Because by the time you get to level 80, it's going to do about 1k damage over the 3 rounds, including that first initial hit, especially if you're using enchants. And 1k damage, while that's not entirely a lot, from a fire elf for 2 pips, while you can use those 3 extra rounds to build up your spells, is a great way to get those higher hits. So put some of those in there. Put some Meteor Strikes in there, because at the end, if there's like, a 1k health left on the boss and like 500 left on the minions, you can, boom, Meteor Strike, and you can kill them all in one fluid shot, which is awesome. Now, other thing, feints. I usually put about 3 in there, maybe 4. I honestly don't use feint that often to have it in there as much. This is just because feints are problematic because they do give you 30% damage on yourself. So timing is really, really important. So if you're facing against somebody, you're going to want to make sure you shield yourself after you put the trap on, not before. Especially if you're going first, always put the trap on yourself first and then shield. If you're going second, then put the shield first and then the trap. That way you don't lose your shield because of the trap. Or at least there's a lesser chance of losing it. Elemental blades and traps. Honestly, again, traps are not that great for me. But if you're teaming up with an ice, fire, and a storm, then yes, use elemental traps, use elemental blades. I usually put about 3 blades in here just in case. And then these rest of these spots will be used up by shields. So, for example, if I'm fighting a storm boss, because of my setups, I have the ability to do this. And you can double stack. You can put these on, put these on, put these on, and that's all good. All right, so that's your boss deck. The next deck you're going to want to do, let me just make sure so the next deck you're going to want to do is your main deck, main attack deck. So main decks, these are going to be smaller. This is why I'm picking this deck, because it's the smallest deck that I have. Because you don't need that much in there. Basically, all you're going to put in here is enchants, if you have them. No healing. You can put blades in there, just don't put too many, because obviously this is a smaller deck. And then you're going to put in a lot of fire elves, a lot of meteors, and you can also put some phoenixes in here for those finishers. So basically with this deck, as you can see, it's only 3 rows. It's very small, and this is how it's supposed to be. So basically, you only have 4 colossals in this example. So what I will usually do is I'll put in some gargantuans for 225 and 275. That way I can cover more ground. Just in case I don't grab any in my first hand, because this is what my first hand hopefully will be. It's a colossal, a blade, and a meteor. Those are the 3 spells that I need in my first hand. So that way I can colossal, I can fire blade, next hit, boom. I can do probably around, if I critical, I can do around 2-3k damage, which is really good. Obviously for people who are lower level, you should still have meteor, because meteor is a lower level spell. So put meteor in there. You're going to want it. Okay, so that's your main deck. That's basically what you're going to want in there. No shields, no heals, small blades. That's it. Because you're just going to hit. In the case that you don't draw your meteor right away, but you do have fire elves and some kind of enchant, if you do have enchants, enchant, hit. Enchant, hit. Because if you fizzle, there's a chance you'll grab a meteor. And discard too. It's totally cool to discard. Okay, so this deck is going to be your, for me, fire boss. So if I'm fighting a boss who is fire, this is not apply to mobs. Mobs are different because they are had to have less resist than a boss does to your own school. So for fire boss, you're going to put your tower shields in. Because this is obviously a fire boss, we're going to be putting in volcanic shields, my colossuses. We're going to put in 2 spirit armors, 3 of those, 3 of those, 4 fire blades, no traps, and for the most case, most people won't have mass fire prism. So in some people's cases, put 4 of these in there because you're going to need them. If you have mass, if you're fighting a fire boss with a fire minion, then yes, use mass fire prism. They're way useful for that. But if you're not, just put in regular prisms. They're not worth losing 2 pips over. Do not put wildfire in there, by the way. Don't do that. Don't ever put the same school in there. Okay, now for attack cards. Attack cards, you're going to want to be really careful with this one because, remember, this is a boss that's your own school. So fire being over time is not a good idea. By the way, put some fire shields in there for minus 80%. That's a really good idea too. But don't put like Rain of Fire. Don't put Skull. Don't put Fire Dragon. Don't put any of those in there. If you have Ifrits, put Ifrit, Elephants, Sunbirds, Phoenixes. Any of those will do. But you want one-hitters. You don't want overtime. That's just not going to help you at all. It's going to hurt you. Because if you put those prisms on, you only have 4. So remember that. You only have 4 prisms. what's going to happen is you're going to run out of prisms and you're going to be fucked. So don't put that in there. Just keep it to one hitters. Elephants, Phoenixes, Ifrits if you have them. Let's see. So I have boss deck, main deck, fire boss deck. Oh, I do always carry one extra deck. This is my like helping deck. I think there might be a name for that actually. Yeah, there is. Helping deck. Okay, so helping deck. This is the deck where if you're doing like team ups, if you're helping somebody that's a lower level than you, please don't be that asshole that comes in and just, you know, destroys everything for them. Don't be that guy. I don't do that. This is what I do. I just put in a ton of shields, heals, spirit armors, I will put in smoke screens. Feints. 4 feints. Elemental blades. Elemental traps. Okay, this is what I do. And then I always put at the end, just in case I need to, I will put in some Phoenixes. Just in case I need to attack, I can. Now, if you're helping someone that's in Wizard City, Crocotopia, Marleybone, where you really don't need many attack cards, this is the deck that you want. If you're higher level, obviously, the more you can put in here, you can put a little more attack spells in there. But honestly, you're there to help. You're not really there to just kill everything for them. So this is pretty good. 5 Phoenixes, so you can hit if you need to. You can discard, of course, and you can shield the shit out of your friends and help them out because this is their battle, not yours. This is what I do personally. But so those are the decks that I usually carry around: boss deck, main deck, fire boss deck, helping deck. Those are the decks that I carry around. I undid all of these and I built them from scratch. These are the decks that I actually do use, so you can see for a fact this is what I do. Anyways, guys, this was the today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed the deck video, building decks 101. Obviously, one more thing for lower levels, for all you lower levels, this is what you're gonna want to do. For your attack decks, you're gonna want to put all your attack cards in there because when you're lower level, you don't have a choice. If you have shields that apply to the enemy or the mob or boss you're fighting, put those in, exchange them out. You're gonna be changing your deck, you know, all the time. That's fine. It's okay to change your deck around because you're going to need to, depending on the bosses that you're fighting and the mobs that you're fighting. Because sometimes when you're lower level, it gets a little tricky when you're fighting. For example, for me, when I was fighting Fire Cat Alley, there's a bunch of fire people to face, so it's a little more difficult for me. So I had to put more attack cards in there so that I can, you know, handle that. Secondary schools I will go over in a different video, and I'll go over some other things in different videos. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope to see you next time. Peace out.